Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of War and Conquest. Kind of. This is our sort of partial episode we do at the end of every series, just in case you guys want to do any of this research on your own, which I hope you do. This is a fascinating story we covered here, and it is nice to look into on your own because there's just so many other details that I just didn't have the time or the memory to throw in there. So welcome to the season 12 source review. And we're doing things a little differently. I'm going to post this on YouTube as well. I'm going to record this on Zoom so you guys can at least visualize what the books look like. Or, if you just want to, look at my smiling face, you can do that. I mean, the episode will be exactly the same, except on YouTube, you can actually view me and the books we're talking about. All right, so let's just hop right into this because we don't need a big preamble here. So I've got my books separated into two piles: the good and the bad, or the not as good. And there's an upper crust to the sources I used, and there's just the other stuff I used occasionally. Let me pull up Audible here real quick so I can get the ones I used for audiobooks. Library. Okay. So starting off top of the pile, we have The Siege of Malta, 1565 by Francisco Balbi di Correggio, or Correggio. Who prints this? By Boydell and Brewer. Fantastic book. I sang this book's praises plenty of times during the making of the series. One of the greatest primary sources ever. Like, you should have the works of Julius Caesar. You should have the Chronicle of the Third Crusade. You should have the Siege of Malta by Francisco Balbi. 4 primary source works that, if you're not used to reading primary sources, are, maybe I'll throw in Ibn al-Athir's work too, just to have a nice little rounded off 5 for you. So yeah, Siege of Malta by Balbi, best thing I read here. In second place, well, at least for the text sources we have The Great Siege of Malta by our friend Bruce Ware Allen. He came on the show a few weeks ago. Very interesting character. This is probably the biggest compilation book I have for the Siege of Malta. Let's see, it's like 300 pages, and it's very in depth, and it's just about the Siege of Malta. A lot of the other books I have, they cover other instances. Sometimes they start at the Siege of Rhodes or different other places in the history of the Knights. So Malta is sort of an afterthought, whereas, as the Great Siege of Malta implies, it's all about the Great Siege of Malta. It's about one thing in particular. I mean, you get some of the surrounding stuff. He mentions Rhodes, but for the most part, it's all about the Siege of Malta. And then right on par with that, we have Empires of the Sea by Roger Crowley. See if I can find the book details here. Yeah, I'm not going to show it because it's not going to really tell. You can find it in text, or as I have it, an audiobook. Fantastic book. I love talking with Roger. He's a good friend of the show, and that covers everything in the War for the Mediterranean, from the sieges of Rhodes all the way up into and a little bit past the Battle of Lepanto. Fantastic book, and I dedicated the Battle of Lepanto episode to him because, well, I would have been lost without a paddle without him on that one, because most of these other books we have here don't really cover that, or it's like a paragraph description. While we're doing audiobooks, I had The Great Siege of Malta by Charles Rivers Editors. That's like an hour and a half long thing. It's got some detail on there, but honestly, you guys probably know more about the Siege of Malta just from listening to the podcast. I mean, if you got a credit and you're looking to throw it away, go for it. And then there's The Great Siege by Ernie Bradford, which I'm pretty sure is the same as these two books here, because Ernie Bradford, or at least his publisher, the Sneaky Devils, released both these books, and they're exactly the same. One is called The Knights of the Order by Ernie Bradford. It says St. John, Jerusalem, Rhodes, Malta. It's got a black cover with a Hospitalier cross on it, and this one has a red cover. It's called The Shield and the Sword, The Knights of Malta by Ernie Bradford. Best-selling author. Oh, apparently it is a different book. Okay. It says best-selling author of The Great Siege. So I think they might be different books, but they're all about the same thing. But these books are literally identical. If I open these to the same pages, the words are going to say the same thing. So keep an eye out that if you're looking on Amazon to buy some of these sources, so you don't make the same mistake and throw away, I don't know, what was it, 15, 20 bucks, whatever I spent on these books. And then a little bit less good, that's not a word. We have The Knights Hospitalier, Military History of the Knights of St. John by John Carr. It's not a bad book. It's just, it's brief. I mean, what he has here is good, but you know, he skips over a lot of stuff. You know, like for instance, like he combines Malta and Lepanto into the same chapter. Like, come on, you couldn't have spent more than, let's see, find out exactly. So it's from page 143 to 160. That's all he has for Malta and Lepanto. You know, we spent like between the two of them, we spent like 5 or 6 hours of podcast on, and he spent like a couple dozen pages. So keep that in mind. Sort of tangentially related, we have Suleiman the Magnificent by Andre Clot. This this helped me a lot more with the early episodes of the show, like up into Malta. It doesn't really cover it up. I mean, if you're looking more into Ottoman history and like how Suleiman's magnificent career got him the nickname the Magnificent, this is definitely the book for you. As you can see, if you're watching it, it's very thick. It's another couple 100-page book. Let's see, 300 some pages. So this is another thick book. It's quality, but I didn't use it super a lot after we got past the opening stages and we've established Suleiman and his personality. A lot of these books I buy just to get into the head of the protagonist or antagonist of the story. You know, I just need some kind of background where I can, once I get on that level where I can relate to somebody, then the rest is easy. If you're looking for more of illustrative works, we have The Knights of Malta by H.J.A. Sire. It's got a lot of pictures and maps. And this is more concerned with the order as a whole, like the order in Europe. I mean, there are certain sections about what we're talking about where you might be able to glean a few details, but like it's more about the order as a whole, as you know, the title of the book implies. It's got a lot of paintings, it's got pictures, it's got maps. So if you're looking for more of an illustrative experience, then The Knights of Malta is for you. The same with The Knights of Jerusalem by David Nicole, or Nicole. Maybe he's French. Anyway, I can make fun of the French. They don't listen to the podcast. The only major European country that doesn't listen to this show, at least according to my analytics, and like half of the stuff I've done is French history. And this series is sort of French history. We did the invasion of Gaul by the Romans. We did Charlemagne. We did the Crusades, which were very French, and yet people from France just don't listen to the show, which makes me sad. But anyway, this book is the same way. It's got a lot of pictures, got a lot of maps. You know, if you're looking for the entire story of the Hospitaliers, then Knights of Jerusalem is for you. And I think that's all. Let me just look through and make sure. Oh, just as a little more side reading, if you want to get more into the period, Useful Enemies by Noel Malcolm. It's all about the changing perception of the Ottomans by European eyes throughout the whatchamacallit. Why am I having a stroke? I just like the changing attitudes of Europe about the Ottomans throughout the years. I guess that's where I was trying to go. Gee, I didn't even smoke weed before this, and I'm already losing it. And then I have Suleiman the Magnificent, and by Hourly History, which, you know, as the name implies, is just an hour-long thing. Essentially just a long YouTube video. So if you're into that kind of thing and you get credits to sell or credits to use on Audible, you can do it. But you're getting what you pay for. It's an hour-long book. And I believe, let me just check my trusty bookshelf one more time to make sure I got everything. Yeah, I believe. Oh, I have this too. This is The Ottoman Empire, the Classical Age, 1300 to 1600 by Halil Inalcik. I don't know. I don't really use it that much. It's the same thing. It's one of those brief overview books, which are nice if you're trying to get a whole story, but for particular stories like we do here, they're not always the greatest. And that's the source review. It's about what I expected. It's the source review. It's the least interesting episode in one of the most fascinating series we've done so far. I honestly think this was some of my best work. The siege of Rhodes, or the sieges of Rhodes and Malta coming together. I don't know. I've had a lot of fun doing this series, and hopefully we can continue that momentum going forward for the Anglo-Saxons. I'm working hard on it already. I'm reading some overview books right now. I'm just trying to get the whole story. And now I've just got to sort of just divvy it up like lines of Coke and snort those historical facts directly into my brain. And without, no, that's not right. I hope you guys found this historical book buying guide to be of any help if you guys want to do research on your own. And I'll catch you on the next one for the start on our series on the Anglo-Saxon.